Morning, everyone. This is Michele Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. Well, we're having a very big day today, and Ed Hoyt is my guest, and he is someone I'm going to tell you about in just a moment. But before I do, I just wanted to say happy birthday to us. We've been 5 years as of July 19th, which is tomorrow, with United Broadcasting Network, who's the producer and distributor of our podcast. So shout out to Tony Sweet, the CEO, who's producing the show today. And thank you, thank you, thank you, Tony, for all these wonderful years and all the many incredible guests that we've had. And it makes me very happy that we're one of the long-lasting podcasts in a world that has been kind of inundated with podcasts, but we're the survivors and we've only improved over time. So thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Michele. You did an amazing job. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. So Ed, you're on today with an anniversary. So
thank you. It's an honor to be here on your birthday.
Thank you, thank you. Well, you are following. You have some big shoes to step into, but that's not meant to intimidate you because you're every bit as good as every one of our other guests. But I just want to tell a little bit about our history so people know that we're not just meeting each other for the first time today. And so as serendipity has a way of doing funny things in life, Ed was a guest at my secret beach hideaway, and I think it was probably 15 years ago, right, Ed?
Yeah, gosh, maybe even closer to 20 years ago now.
Okay, well, could be. But I remember this very handsome man showed up at my beach hideaway on Kauai, where I had 6 different properties, and he chose one of our little honeymoon cottages, but he came on his own. And anyway, because I think we had so much in common, we just struck up a friendship. And I think, Ed, didn't you come twice, or was it my?
Oh, yeah. I kind of camped out at your place. I was looking back at that at one point in time, and I think altogether I rented it for about 5 or 6 months.
Oh.
Yeah, up all the time that I've been there. Absolutely beautiful property, all that wonderful acreage that rolled down to Secret Beach and all the beautifully manicured trees and gardens. And it was absolutely spectacular. It was a wonderful healing time for me. Thank you.
Well, that's such a sweet thing to say. And, it is a very special place. Unfortunately, it's not in my portfolio anymore, but someone else has inherited that incredible property. And yes, it was 40 acres. And you were on one of the 5-acre properties, but we had continuous acreage of 4 different properties. And if you remember, we had a 26-acre conservation area down at the beach, so you could cross over right to Secret Beach, which is considered one of the most spectacular beaches in the world. So yeah, I was a very lucky developer with some amazing properties, and just like my podcast, some amazing guests. So thank you for being one of them, and very loyal. And anyway, so just by, again, serendipity, I was on a call with one of my former guests in the DNA company, Kashif Khan, and he was telling me about my DNA test and that, what I should do for follow-up. And lo and behold, he said, well, I think you should take this product, know about this company called Calroy, Calroy. And he said, look it up. And they have a couple of products that I think are really quite cutting edge. So as I always do, I started my due diligence and I looked at the Google and it said Ed Hoyt, and it was the same Ed Hoyt that I knew almost 20 years ago. And I just couldn't believe my eyes. So I knew he was always into the health and wellness and supplement and nutrition world. And I had visited him in Scottsdale, so I knew it was the same Ed Hoyt. And anyway, so we made that reconnection, and I'm so happy we've done. And then we saw each other last December at the American Academy of Anti-Aging. So anyway, so that's the long story to tell you the short story about Ed and I having a wonderful history together. So we've reconnected, and I want today to feature Ed and Calroy because As I told Ed in our phone calls, I think this is one of the more cutting edge, interesting companies, and very much a science and R&D company. And I was explaining to him that it's very confusing as a consumer to try to pick supplements that are going to work. And very often I have gone on Amazon, and very often on Amazon, some of those products are not even the real products from the real company. So you have to be very careful about some counterfeits. So there's that issue, and then of course there's just a huge array of options, and it is very confusing for the consumer. So when I heard that this about Calroy, and that they only have two products, but those two products are so intensely researched, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But if you're interested in taking care of your circulatory system and specifically your heart, but of course your gut and your heart are connected, as is your brain. So this is a company you need to know about. So let's start with, first of all, a little history on you, Ed. Tell us who you are.
Oh, well, thank you, Michele. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. And I'm happy to be here with you and with your listeners. So yeah, I came into the dietary supplement industry through a relatively unusual path. I was classically trained in college as an aerospace engineer, and I went into aerospace engineering, and I, for a while, worked on rocket propulsion systems, fin actuation systems, things for Patriot missiles and Sidewinders, and this, that, and the other. I was the proverbial quote-unquote rocket scientist type group guy. And while that was really a lot of fun, it was not personally fulfilling to me when I heard what some of the things I was working on did. I mean, when used in defensive ways, they were great, but some of the offensive ways they were used just didn't sit well with me. And so I started looking for a change in my career, and I put word out, and I was introduced to a fellow named Dr. Stanley Bynum, who was one of the very earliest people. This would have been in 92, 91, 92 that I started looking. And he was one of the leading people in probiotics. And I didn't know much about it. I then went on to get educated in the dietary supplement and nutraceutical space, and learned how important probiotics really were. And Michele, it's kind of funny, back then, everybody that was involved with probiotics, and there was only a few of us, and a couple companies doing it, they were afraid to let people know that it was bacteria. Because at least when I grew up, the word bacteria, the words good and bacteria, they didn't go together. There was no such thing as good bacteria. Bacteria was bad no matter what. And so we learned a lot about how to work with healthcare professionals and get the message out to them so that they could get their message out to their patients, which is what we're doing now with our current company. But that company, we were able to grow it and scale it. And at the time we sold it, it was operating in 18 different countries around the world, and doing a significant business in terms of enhancing people's lives. And Michele, that was always my goal. I think I may have shared with you on one of our earlier calls that when I was about 13 years old, I told my mom and dad, I said, I know what I want to do in life. And it's later become, put in a little bit better words, it's my personal mission. It's to enhance and enrich the quality of life for millions of people worldwide. Obviously at 13, I didn't know how to put it that way. I just want to help people feel better and be happy. And they said, how are you going to do that? I think they thought, I was going to say I wanted to be a fireman or an astronaut or whatever, but that's what I said. And they said, well, how are you going to do that? And I said, I don't know, but life has presented that. And so after selling that company, a few years later, I originally wanted to retire. And then I realized, this retirement wasn't feeling good. I wasn't really helping people. And that's really what drives me, what really motivates me. So I put the word out again. I said, I need to find something that can make a huge difference in human life. And people brought all sorts of different ideas. Michele, when you were developing property, people would come all the time with this idea. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. How about if we do this? And none of them resonated, because most of them, let's just say all of them except this particular one, which was when I was introduced to Dr. Chen and learned about this lining on the inside of all of your veins and arteries called the endothelial glycocalyx. Crazy, weird word, but I had heard of this little single cell layer called the endothelium. That's the little lining on the inside of your veins and arteries. And until about 20, 25 years ago, that's all medical science researchers knew about the anatomy of the body within the actual vasculature system.
European Wellness, founded by the iconic and widely published Professor Dr. Michael Chan, is the world leader in stem cell and peptide therapy, with 26 medical and aesthetic spa locations primarily in Europe and Asia. Their website, www.europeanwellness.com, details the wide range of wellness products that can be ordered using the Ageless code for a 10% discount. They will also offer our viewers discounts on medical and cosmetic services and products if they choose to visit the clinics. I have firsthand experience using their wide range of science-based stem cell and peptide products and am now a loyal customer. Go to their website, www.europeanwellness.com, for more information about this exciting company.
What they didn't know and found out later is that there's a tiny little thin, micro-thin lining. It's a slippery gel-like lining that coats the entire interior of that. And I started learning what it does, what it protects, what it regulates. And I said, wow, this is something the world needs to know about. And at that time, nobody was doing anything about it. As a matter of fact, very few people really understood it. As a matter of fact, about 10 years ago, when we started talking to medical professionals about this, Michele, I'd say 99% of them had never heard of it because it wasn't taught yet in med school. It is being taught in med school now because now they're aware of it. It's this super thin, slippery structure that just does so much for the body. And so that's a little bit of my history, how I kind of came from rocket science and didn't like it and got into dietary supplements starting in 92. So I've been involved for, gosh, that's a lot of years now, I guess 32 or 33 years or whatever it is. And I'm really loving it.
Okay, so you're still a rocket scientist in my world, in my definition, because you're doing some amazing things in the health and wellness world. So you may have changed careers in terms of the actual product, but you're still a rocket scientist. So, Ed, why do you think the endothelial oh gosh, how do you say it again?
That is so perfect, Michele, because it took me 2 months to get to even say that stupid word. Glycocalyx.
Glycocalyx, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so why is it that was not well known? It's such an important, now that we know what it is, and I hope my viewers are taking notes because I had never heard of it until I met you. So I think it's something we all need to know because it is so mainstream, essential to our health, and yet it's not a concept or a name that we ever hear about. So why do you think it took so long for the medical community to discover how important this is to our health?
Great question. And the reason it took so long is because nobody knew it was there. It wasn't discovered until even seen because it's so microscopically thin. Let me give you an idea. Think of the thickness of an average piece of paper. You know, the piece of paper is pretty thin. It would take of this layer, it would take 1,000 of these layers to be the thickness of a piece of paper. And in just an autopsy or something, if they're just studying the human body, as soon as it's exposed to air, it evaporates. It's just gone. It's just gone. So it wasn't seen until improvements in what they call in vivo imaging technology, meaning looking inside the body, you know, being able to not having to wait for it to be outside the body. Once the imaging technology got to the point where it could see it, and it's kind of a fun history of what really happened there. At first, they just saw this space between, like, imagine that, you know, this is the circle that's your vein, and they started seeing this little space between all the what's called the lumen, that's all the red and white blood cells and the proteins and the, you know, vitamins and minerals and their, you know, cholesterol, everything that's flowing in there. They started seeing this little space, and they thought, oh, that's probably a charge, like a magnet with a negative charge and a positive charge, and it's keeping it away from the vascular wall, from the capillary wall, etc. Turns out that as the imaging technology got better and better, they started saying, actually, that's not a space. What that is this super slippery lining. And under a very high power electron microscope, you can see that it looks like almost like little hairs. It's not really hairs, like these little, we'll call them hairs for today. But it's this gel-like lining, and it controls absolutely everything that happens between your blood and the rest of your body. It is got some amazing properties. So the reason it wasn't talked about, and the reason that people, the doctors weren't, quote, focusing on it, is they didn't even know it was there. Now, a very significant percent of medical practitioners know about it. It is being taught in med school now. There are many, many papers. You can go to PubMed, which is the government, aggregate database for all of the different research studies, clinical studies, et cetera, and put in endothelial glycocalyx. Try typing it into Google. It'll correct the spelling for you, and then you can go from there because there's just no way you're going to be able to spell it.
Yeah, to EGX, just for everybody who wants to make it even shorter. So, and that will
most people have abbreviated it to TGX. And if you can't remember any of that, just try to remember Calroy. You can go to our website. We've got links to all the different research about it. But now there's a plethora of research from research universities and centers, literally globally. A lot of research coming out of Japan, a lot coming out of the United States, out of the Netherlands, et cetera, talking about this. A big study that was funded by the Department of Defense, the U.S. Department of Defense, the National Institute of Health, and the American Heart Association just completed a study that was done in Texas. So lots and lots of research going on with this right now, because many of your listeners are probably aware of this, that little lining called the endothelium, the one that science has known about for hundreds of years, I don't know if hundreds, but for a long time, if that is not healthy, you can't have a healthy cardiovascular system. You absolutely cannot have a healthy cardiovascular system. Well, guess what? If this layer, this gel layer, because of everything it does, and I'll share with you the things that it does, but because of what that layer does, if that layer is not healthy, you can't have a healthy endothelium. So if that's not healthy, you don't have a healthy endothelium, which means you can't have a healthy cardiovascular system. And it can lead to lots and lots of different downstream problems. So that's why they weren't focusing on it. And once they did and started finding out the properties, that's when it got really exciting.
So what influences the health of the endothelium, and then, of course, the EGX?
The EGX is primary. Well, the endothelium itself can be attacked through a lot of different properties. However, I want to back up to the EGX because it is really the protector of the endothelium. So really what damages the endothelium is having a bad EGX, a bad endothelial glycocalyx, because then it can be under attack from inflammatory sources, from being penetrated by things that it shouldn't be penetrated by. For example, one of the functions of the endothelium, I'm just going to call it EGX. One of the functions of the EGX is that it's a selective, what they call permeability barrier. What that means is that it lets certain things in that are supposed to get in. Keep in mind, everything that we do, the oxygen we breathe, the food that we eat that gets broken down into the vitamins and minerals and proteins and amino acids and fatty acids and all the things that our body needs to run, that all gets transported to every cell of our body through our vascular system. It's the delivery system. You could think of it like, FedEx and UPS and Amazon and the post office combined. You've got something and you got to get it from here and you need to get it there. This is that transport system. And if there's a problem with the transport system, then there's going to be problems with the end delivery sites, the different organs and areas of the body. And then that same system is what takes away the bad stuff, takes away the byproducts of, the residual waste, if you would, from the body. So this barrier, this EGX, it determines what gets to go in and not. You could think of it like a doorman at a high-end condo or something like that, where somebody comes in and says, I want to go see so and so. And say, yeah, sure, you're on the list. You can go on in. Yeah, you're on the list. Oh, they called down. You can go in. You go. And somebody comes in and the doorman goes, I'm sorry, you're not on the list, and says, no, you can't go in. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the endothelial glycocalyx is like that. The EGX is saying, hey, you're coming on down here. Yeah, you're a good vitamin and good mineral. Yeah, you can go on in. Oxygen, of course. Yeah. Oh, that bad cholesterol. Nope. No, just keep on moving. Keep on moving. What's very interesting is that when this layer is fully healthy, there isn't that direct relationship of the amount of cholesterol to the challenges with it, because frankly, if it doesn't get in and start lodging underneath and forming problems, then it's really not a problem.
So, okay, so the things that influence that health would be your diet, your sleep, your stress level. I'm just naming the things that are very important to overall health that we hear about. What about the gut?
Yeah, well, there's actually a glycocalyx layer in your gut too. It's a different type of one, and but anyhow, the relationship, the tie-in with the gut is absolutely there and critical, because let me tell you one of the things that attacks the EGX more than anything. It's unregulated glucose, meaning high sugar spikes. If somebody's eating a diet, well, and even people that have challenges keeping their diabetes in check, etc. Sugar is one of the number one things that'll just wipe out the glycocalyx, and it's a very, very fast-acting part of the body. It can be wiped out in hours. The clinical studies have shown that it can be wiped out literally in hours, and it can take a day or two to regenerate, but that's only if it doesn't get attacked by something else. So one of the biggest things, Michele, is poor diet with too much glucose in the diet, too much sugar in the diet, or unregulated blood sugar in the body. But then, of course, lack of exercise directly relates to it. And most of the other standard lifestyle factors. It's kind of neat that it's always the same factors that underlines everything, diet and lifestyle. And so, if we truly could get serious about that, we'd make a significant difference in our quality of life.
Exactly. And, that's why so many diabetics die of heart disease because of that interconnection. And then also, of course, having amputations because of the circulatory issues of, too much sugar inhibiting the EGX, and also causing loss of nitric oxide, which we'll go talk about in a moment. Then that is there to be loss of circulation to the limbs, mostly into the feet and lower extremities, right, where a lot of the amputations for diabetics occur. So one thing that's amazing about wellness, looking at this whole world of how to live a healthier life, it's not that difficult. It's very logical. I mean, if you're going to eat sugar, you're going to get illness. If you're going to eat green leafy vegetables and you're doing the other things that go along with that, like you've just mentioned, exercise, good sleep, good stress control management, and all the things that are very logically influencing. Not too much alcohol, if any, because that has a high sugar content. So that's another killer. So I think people realize, that are becoming educated about taking care of themselves, that it isn't that complex. It's just following the disciplines that will help, and then the science will follow, even if you don't know the science. Like most people don't know the science of the endothelium. However, they're influencing that every single day of their life when they're doing the right things, making the right choices. So, okay, so what is? Let's go to the history again. So, how did you go from meeting Dr. Chen, who's the co-founder of Calroy and the scientific medical head of the company? How did you go from meeting him to starting a company? This is like one of the biggest questions people ask is, it's one thing to have an idea. It's quite another thing to create a successful enterprise. And that's where entrepreneurialism comes in. And that's, a big part of our show is always to look at how the entrepreneurs create the outcome. So you are an entrepreneur. Obviously, you already had a successful run with a prior $150 million company in the sale. So you were on a path, but you said it took 3 years to find the next right fit. So how did it happen? How did you go from A to B?
Great question. I didn't know your show talked about entrepreneurism.
Oh,
That's awesome. That
absolutely. Well,
I'm-
they're interconnected because even medical doctors, many of them are running companies.
absolutely.
As you know from your advisory board, I looked at all the backgrounds, and some of them are running actual companies that they had to create. So yes, I mean, you're a businessman. I'm a businesswoman. A lot of those doctors are not usually qualified, or at least prepared to do what we have been trained to do in our life as entrepreneurs. But they somehow or other, I love it when they're successful, when a medical doctor can make that transition into a business enterprise, because if they're not really trained to be business people, and very often they're some of the worst, as history will demonstrate. That doesn't denigrate doctors, because what they do in their medical world is incredibly important. It's just that those skills are often not part of their training, or they're even in their DNA.
Yeah.
So that being said, we're very lucky that we're embracing a world of wellness that is including all the medical and scientific side, but also that we have the business skills to create actual entrepreneurial companies. So all that being said, how did you do it? Tell us your secrets.
Yeah, great lead in. And by the way, I hope not too many of the practitioners that are with Calray. We have a bit over 10,000 medical doctors that recommend our product, and I hope not too many of them are listening, because I agree with you. Some of them are not the best business people, but some of them are just amazing and blow me away. So it's really cool to see. So great question. I have, as a lifelong entrepreneur, I've been kind of like a major league baseball player. I bat around 350 to 400, meaning I have more things that didn't work over the course of my lifetime than things that did. So, for your entrepreneurs that are listening here, don't think that it's all, sweet and roses and everything like that, because there's a lot of crap you got to go through sometimes until you really find something that makes a difference. And for me, what attracted me after I let go of the the rocketry stuff, what attracted me was things that could make an impact on human life. And I found for myself that in business, I believe that the measure of success is really a measure, like, for example, financial success. If you're measuring it in dollars, I'm saying I believe that those dollars are really reflective of the number of people's lives that you touch. Sometimes I was talking to one of my children, and she said to me, adult children, and she was just talking a little bit about, isn't it crazy, like how much money some of these entertainers make or whatever? And I said, well, let's look at how many people's lives they enhance. I mean, how many people are happy when they hear their songs or watch their movies or whatever? Maybe millions and millions and millions. So it's a reflection of the number of lives you touch. So to actually get there, what I did to get there, I did put the word out in my network that I was looking for something that could enhance quality of life, and it needed to be something that nobody else had done before, because I didn't want to just try to take something, for example, in the dietary supplement world. And by the way, I even said, Michele, it doesn't need to be dietary supplements. It just needs to be able to enhance and enrich the quality of people's lives. And through people, somebody said, you need to talk to this guy, Dr. Chen. And when Dr. Chen shared with me, the research on this product, that our flagship product is called Artericell. And Artericell is for that EGX. Our Tiracell provides the building blocks for the body to regrow the EGX. And we have tons of research that shows that it actually does that. Remember, we have a patent on a technology called the microfluidic chip, where it has living human endothelial glycocalyx, and you enter different materials and you study and you see what it does. Does it hurt it? Does it help it? And we found this really interesting rare green seaweed called, another crazy name. I got tons of crazy names. Don't worry, you don't have to remember these names. But it's called Monostromonididum. It's this green seaweed that grows in these pristine waters and these rocky outcroppings in the Pacific. And it has this compound within it that we actually specially extract, and it's called monotamor S. And it is what does the power to regrow the glycocalyx. And this microfluidic chip was able to prove, yes, it is actually doing that. And so the actual business side of it, I realized when I met Dr. Chen, we ended up what was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting. 3 hours later, you've had those kind of meetings, I'm sure. 3 hours later, we're just really enjoying each other. And I found out that the research on this started in 1999 by Dr. Bruce Daniels, who made the connection. He's a leading practitioner, with award-winning practitioner in the cardiology space, and he made the hypothesis that some of these specific ingredients could help this layer, and the layer was just being discovered at that time. He asked Dr. Chen, who is a dual PhD research scientist. Dr. Chen's the co-founder of Calroy. He asked Dr. Chen to join his research team in 2001. So now keep in mind, I met these people, I met them in 2013 or 14. So they'd already been working on this for like 14 years, but they had not really seen a path to commercialization of it, to bringing it to market. I had that experience of my previous company. We sold directly to practitioners, licensed healthcare practitioners, doctors. We also sold directly to athletic teams. You know, we sold to the New York Yankees, Miami Heat, Houston Rockets, Houston Comets, San Francisco Giants, Phoenix Coyotes, Arizona, you know, like 26 or 27 professional teams that purchase our products. So I had experience in helping bring things to market in the doctor market and in the professional athletic world, and other areas. We had other channels too. And so I saw that this is a product human beings could really need. And this is something that the world needs to learn about. And Michele, when I was involved with probiotics back in '92, this journey right now with the EGX reminds me so much of that, because nobody knew about probiotics back then. We used to try to hide that it was bacteria, because if people found out it was bacteria, they're like, I don't want this, get this bacteria away from me, you know. So we developed a commercialization plan based on some of our models of deciding that this needed to go to healthcare practitioners. We built a business plan about how to expose it to healthcare practitioners. We knew the science was real, and we just figured we just had to plow through. In total, Michele, over $20 million went into the development of our Tiracell, which is not the normal development path for a dietary supplement, not even close. The original path was for pharma, but we haven't been able to synthesize the molecule yet. We were able to take the natural substance and go through a specialized proprietary extraction process, turn it into this monotamor S, which is the heartbeat of our Tiracell. So that's how we went through it. We self-funded also.
Now, that was the next question I was going to ask, is how did you ever, at that stage when you were dealing with scientists who had been researching the product for 14 years, how did you transition to funding, which of course is the key component of the growth of an enterprise? So, and you self-funded. So that's just completely amazing. And you have 2 patents, which we know that part of that 20 million is, you know, the big part is going into the R&D, into those patents, right?
Yeah, and actually our patent portfolio is larger than that. Because we have similar patents to the ones we have in the U.S. in many different countries. We have patents in China, Canada, South Korea, Japan, Australia, et cetera. So the building out the patent portfolio is really important, because it helps build the moat of protection. You can't put this kind of money into a dietary supplement and not, let me just say it this way. It would not be smart to put this kind of money into a dietary supplement unless you could have some sort of moat, because there'd be no way to regain, you know, to to recapitalize, to get your money back and have it turn into a profitable enterprise so that you can help people all over the world. At the end of the day, if we don't make a profit, we won't be able to help people with this product.
So how did you take the seaweed? The extraction process, of course, is that in itself is a finite process. And how do you take this polysaccharide? How do you make it clean, free of pesticides, bacteria, fungi, all the things that go into the contamination of a product, particularly when it's coming out of our contaminated ocean?
Yeah, great question. There are processes to be able to put it through. First off, we do get it from very pristine waters. It is actually, we actually have relationships with the fisher people that literally cut it off the rocks. This is a type of seaweed that when the tide goes out, it's exposed and it needs to be hand cut off of the rocks. And we have relationships with the fisher people that do that, the men and women that do that, all the way up through the final product sitting in a bottle in somebody's home. So, we're involved at every single stage of the operation. And there are techniques within the extraction world of how to be able to purify a product. And we also do complete testing. We test for heavy metals. We test for pesticides. We test for any type of contaminants. We even test for radiation. We test for anything that could possibly be in the product. And we actually do that 3 different times. We do it in-house while we're building it, while we're manufacturing the product. And then we send it to 2 different unaffiliated outside labs, so that we have it triple tested. And we do that, Michele, on every single lot. We don't just do it one time and say, oh, we got good stuff. We do it every single time we manufacture the product.
This is another thing that I'm glad you brought this up, that I think is really important for people to understand when you're looking at buying a supplement. Always look to see if it's third party tested, right? So if the company spends that kind of money to have a lab independent of them test the product that comes out clean and efficacious, that's a really big selling point. And you might have to pay a little more for those kind of products that people do that, but it's always on their website. So, when you're looking to buy a product, right? Am I right, Ed? Look for that.
I would say if it's not on their website, they probably don't do it. Because if they do it, they would probably say, and I'm sure it says, I don't know everything on our website, but I'm sure it says somewhere that it's independent third party tested. And Michele, if those tests ever come out bad, we just scrap that lot. And that's just the way it is, because you think about, why do people take dietary supplements? It's a concentration of, like you've seen the diagrams, you'd have to eat this many vegetables to get what's in this one product or whatever. Well, that means it's concentrated. And if it's concentrated, it means the bad stuff's concentrated too. Yeah. So you've just got to absolutely do that testing. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so what blew my mind is when I was reading about the vascular system, that we have 60,000 miles of blood vessels in our body. I mean, do you use that in your promotion? This is like huge. You are covering 60,000 miles in one human body.
Absolutely. It's amazing, isn't it, to think about it, that within the average human body, there's about estimated to be 60,000 miles of veins, arteries, capillaries, microcapillaries, et cetera, all the way through. And that, as I mentioned earlier, it's the delivery system. Everything, all these other dietary supplements you're taking, if your EGX isn't good, it's not going to get delivered to the proper place. I mean, this is like a baseline. As a matter of fact, Dr. Mark Houston, and some of your listeners are probably familiar with Dr. Mark Houston. As a matter of fact, he asked to join our advisory board. After he learned about our product, he did a study on it, and a clinical study on it. And then afterwards, he said, "Could I be on your advisory board? I really like what you guys are doing." So he is now on our advisory board, and he considers this product now, this Arterso, to be one of his 4 foundational products. In other words, this is what he puts all of his patients on, and then he builds from there. It's so foundational because that delivery system, your entire vasculature system, and the way to be able to extract the waste materials, if that's not working, then it doesn't really matter what you're taking. You can ingest all sorts of stuff, but if you're not delivering it to the right place, you've got a problem.
So, okay, so I'm glad you're saying all this. So how does an individual test the strength and health of their endothelial system? You can go and have blood work for your lipids and your apolipoprotein A and B, and your artery blockage and your calcium score. But how do you know that your delivery system is at its optimum? And is there a test that does that?
Yeah, there's a couple different tests. The gold standard for measuring the health of the endothelium, and remember the EGX protects the endothelium,
Right.
is a device called the EndoPat. And the EndoPat is an FDA approved clinical device. Many practitioners will have it, or their local hospital will have access to it. It's not a cheap test. It's a couple $100, if you're paying out of pocket, probably $200-300. And some insurance will cover it based on what your underlying condition is.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have a code that would allow them to cover it. In terms of directly measuring the EGX, it's so microscopically thin that there is not a device to directly measure the EGX right now. It's really measured by proxy through a couple different technologies. That's why we had to develop this microfluidic chip, which we did in concert with the Chinese Academy of Sciences, because there was a doctor there that was making some significant progress in studying the EGX. And so we teamed up with them, and it took quite a few years to develop this chip platform that I mentioned to you. Has living human endothelial glycocalyx cells. We can introduce different things, and it can show, does it improve them or degrade them? Let me tell you about one of the tests we did. We measured the baseline endothelial glycocalyx, and then we introduced glucose. Why glucose? Well, that's sugar, right? And that degraded it immediately down to about 80% of its height. It was just a small amount of glucose, and it just went down to 80% of its height. And then we added in the monotum RS, our extract, if you would, and it recovered to approximately 103%. So it actually fully recovered in a teeny bit more. So those are the types of tests that can be done now. We are working on technologies because imaging is getting better and better, and we do believe we need one more quantum of imagery accuracy, but we're getting close to that. We have a program going on right now with a company developing an artificial intelligence way to read the readings and be able to try to gain more accuracy through that. So, but the main thing for the endothelium itself, the gold standard would be the EndoPat, PAT.
Okay, I'm glad you explained that, because I had never heard of that, and I don't know if many of my viewers have heard of that, but it is something you could request. Just like you request a lipid test, you could request an EndoPat test, and that will tell you about the health of your endothelium.
Yep.
And of course the EGX is connected to that.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So let me tell you one other trigger, or I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Go ahead.
I want to tell you one other thing that the endothelial glycocalyx, the EGX, does. When it is there, it helps stimulate your body to create nitric oxide.
I was just
your
coming
body. Oh, is that where you're going? Okay.
Yeah, that's where I was going next.
The EGX, those little hair-like things I told you, they're like little triggers. They're like when the blood flows, it sort of pulls on them a little bit and sort of tugs on them a little bit. And that little tugging sends a signal to the endothelial cell to say, hey, the blood's flowing, we need more nitric oxide. So I would imagine that your viewers have probably heard something about nitric oxide, but I want to share with you that nitric oxide is a master signaling molecule in the body. It signals the body to do all these different sort of things. One of the biggest things that it does is signals the body to relax, for what's called vasodilation. Just relax, let your arteries and your veins and everything relax, and not be all scrunched up and tight, but relax, dilate, if you would. And that vasodilation enables blood to flow more freely to all over the body. So even with that trigger, there are times when people don't create enough nitric oxide. And so our second product, I should share with you, Arterso was our flagship product. Vascanox is a nitric oxide support product that's actually the first one, and currently the only one, that has been proven to make nitric oxide available to the body for a full 24 hours. There was
Mm-hmm.
a clinical study done, as a matter of fact, by this Dr. Mark Houston I just talked about. He was the lead principal investigator on this particular study. And that study showed, and by the way, this is published. Again, if people want to go to PubMed or whatever and see these research studies, just go into PubMed and type in Vaskinox or type in Mark Houston or whatever, or you can go to our website and find a link to it, et cetera. But it showed that, and why is that important, Michele? Most nitric oxide support products or supplements will help the body create nitric oxide for anywhere from 2 to at most 4 or 5 or 6 hours. That's it. Okay. So it's just a little peak like this. If you have an athlete that's taking nitric oxide to help with their athletic performance, they have to just keep taking it over and over and over. This is the first one that does it for 24 hours. And it's not because it's time release. What it is it targets 2 pathways. There's the natural, the primary nitric oxide pathway, and then there's others called this hydrogen sulfide pathway. I'm not going to get into the crazy science behind it. You can get into that on our website if you want. But these two together potentiate and allow it to last for 24 hours. And matter of fact, we've got these little strips that you can put on the tip of your mouth. Matter of fact, I think you might have done this at A4M. When did you do the little Vaskinox challenge where you put the strip?
Yeah, no, but I would love to do it. Sort of
We'll get some out to you, and for your listeners, they can get them when they get product or whatever. But you can prove this to yourself. You can absolutely 100% prove that this is working in your body, because you can do the little strip thing, and then we actually have a patented dual pad strip. It not only measures nitric oxide, but it measures the oral probiotic health of your mouth. So it's a patented strip. It's this dual pad strip. It's a 2-in-1 test. And so it tells you how's your oral microbiome doing, which affects how you can produce nitric oxide.
Well, I think most people, athletes and people who are into the fitness world, as many of our viewers are, because we're on Muscle and Fitness on their platform. So we have a cohort of viewers who are very much aware. But I think the big push for nitric oxide is in the fitness world for exercise and also for sexual function, which is a nice byproduct of having good circulation, particularly for me. So I do. That's why I was heading that way to NO, because I know that's such a big subject in the world of wellness, fitness, and health. So the fact that you have 2 products, both of which stimulate, I mean, the Arteriosol, your flagship product, arouses the system in the terms of circulatory efficiency, and then the Vaskinex is the one that really does focus on NO specifically. Is that a good way to?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And you are right, Michele, that a lot of people in the athletic world know about nitric oxide. But let me share with some, for those of you in your audience that aren't athletes.
Yeah.
One of the hugely important aspects of nitric oxide is that it supports and regulates normal blood pressure. So even for people that aren't athletes, the other thing that nitric oxide does is it helps with neuron transmission. So, cognitive type issues, wound healing, muscle relaxation. There's just so many things. It literally, the scientists that discovered it, they were awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine. That's for the discovery of nitric oxide and understanding its uses. That's how important it is in the body. So this Vaskinox product, you're right. It targets specifically allowing your body to be able to not only generate, but potentiate, store, and use over a 24-hour period of time the nitric oxide. So you have a smooth upper, you don't have this crazy spike where it gets nuts. You just have a smooth uptake, and you literally can take that test again for most people after a week or 2, when they take the test first thing the next morning. We tell people to take the test first thing in the morning. When you do it the very first time, unless you're eating a lot of greens and a lot of whatever, you're probably it's not gonna register very well. It's not gonna show very well. The pinker that this little tab gets, the better it is. So you're probably not going to see much pink. But then as you're taking the product, you take 2 capsules a day as you're taking the product and hopefully eating better. maybe hopefully adding some exercise, hopefully. But we know that people don't do all this, Michele. We can say don't eat sugar and do this amount of exercise. And the reality is people are going to eat sugar, and a lot of people aren't going to exercise. So these types of things can be helpful for them. It can provide support to them. And they will see, most people will see within some people 4, 5, 6 days, other people a week or two, they'll start seeing that morning one, that first thing in the morning before they've even taken the product, they'll start seeing that become bright pink. So they'll start realizing it's staying in their system around the clock.
So I have a question for you, Ed. I want to talk about the ingredients of each of these products, including the nitric oxide, which we've been focused on, but you have other ingredients in the two products. And I know that we're going to flash the picture on the screen of the two products so people know what they look like. They're very, very medically, the packaging is very medically looking. I mean, it's good. It makes you feel, very confident. It's not some fly-by-night company, and you're very careful.
Well,
and I to compliment you on your website too. We're going to flash your website on the screen as well. But I wanted to compliment you because it's very well. It's very easy to navigate, and it's very logical, and it has so much information. So anybody that's watching, that's interested in Calroy, go to their website. It's Calroy, www.calroy.com, right?
yes.
Yeah, so it's very easy. And I think you're going to just be ready to absorb, be receptive to absorbing a lot of very good information, and then have cross referrals to the PubMed and to the research and the patents that have been accomplished in the company's history. So, but all of that, just very important to know let's start with arteriosol because that's your flagship. What are the other ingredients besides the seaweed? And I know there's black garlic in there somewhere. Why don't you talk about the ingredients and tell us why they're in there and what they do?
Sure, absolutely. Well, with arteriosol, the key and the primary ingredient is that specialized green seaweed called monostromonidum, and it's that extract, the monotamar extract. That's the primary driver. There's actually 22 different fruits and vegetable ingredients also in arteriosol. So we obviously don't have time to go through 22 of them, but what they're in there for is for their additive properties, their polyphenol properties, and their antioxidant properties, specific ratios to be able to support the EGX. So there's a wide blend of those, and it does go into our website what all of those are. Now, you mentioned black garlic. That is a key ingredient in Vasconox. And
yes.
The black garlic is a very specialized, it's a specific aged black garlic with a very high percent of SAC. For your viewers that know about black garlic, that's like the key magic stuff in it. And we use a standardized, very high percent. As a matter of fact, the highest percent I believe that's available in the industry right now, because that is part of what helps potentiate and activate the hydrogen sulfide pathway. Remember, I told you that there's two pathways. There's the normal nitric oxide pathway, and then there's this hydrogen sulfide pathway, and together they create this more powerful product that can last up to 24 hours. There's also beetroot extract in there. There's a berry blend, a cardiovascular berry blend, and each one of them shows significant support. One thing, I'm glad you asked about the individual ingredients, Michele, because this is a huge differentiator. Our company, and there's some others that do this, our studies are on our finished product. They are not on the individual ingredients. And a lot of companies they'll rely on, you buy this ingredient from this supplier and this ingredient from this supplier and you put them all together, and this supplier's got their study for their ingredient and but you don't necessarily know how do they all act together. What happens when all of those are put in the same capsule and they're all sitting together and they're all delivered at the exact same time to the body?
Right.
That is the kinds of studies we do. It's on our full, complete formula, not just the individual. So when I talk about these different studies, now there are some studies we did just on the monotamar S, because we couldn't add the whole 22 support ingredients to some of our studies. For example, that microfluidic chip was just on the Monotum RS, because as soon as you started adding too much stuff, the chip won't work. It's at a microscopically thin level. It overwhelms it. So, however, all of our, PubMed published studies, et cetera, are on our final finished formula. And that's something your listeners should look for in any product. There are other companies that do it that way, but I will tell you, it's very small. It's in the 2, 3, 4%, maybe as high as 5% of the companies will do that. And then even so, it's usually on 1% or less of the products. Usually people rely on those studies of the individual ingredient. We have curcumin BCM 95 in there, and it does this. Well, that's great. And those curcumin BCM 95 is awesome. And it's got great studies. But what happens with it when you put it in with your 10 other things company A that you put this into? So that's a really important point for your listeners, whether it's our products or others. Look for studies on the full finished formula.
And just the fact that you have 22 food ingredients, real food that you've processed into a pill that are 2 pills that will provide you with all that, ingredients. I mean, there's so many products on the market today, that powders and supplements that you can take to get food that you don't get from your diet because of the depletion of our soils and so forth. So that's just such an added bonus, that you're getting all that, which is synergistic with the with the black garlic and the Vasconex, and then with the seaweed, and so you're just what you just said, that the way you combine these is really key, not just those individual products, but the very fact of extracting real food and getting it into a supplement. That, first of all, it's a very expensive process to do that, and 2, you have to have the efficacy of the actual vegetables that you're putting in there.
Yeah.
And where do you source all those, and how do they, they're organic and they're free of all the things we've talked about before, the pesticides and all the other bad ingredients that can unfortunately compromise our food. So I give you so much adulation for the finite science and the activity process that goes into the finished product. So those 2 products, is it necessary to take them together and to get the fullest benefit?
No, Michelle. Lots of people, you mentioned earlier that our bottles look very sort of medical. Our company has just recently, just literally within the last maybe 8 or 9 months, started allowing consumers to buy the product directly. It has only been available through licensed healthcare practitioners, and it is still the preferred way to get it. We strongly suggest that people talk to their practitioner and find out which one of these products would be the best fit for them. And for some people, it's both. For me, I take both. I come from a family with significant cardiovascular history, bad history. My father had 5 heart attacks before he finally died, and his mom and dad both died of cardiovascular disease. My mother was one of the earliest surviving open heart surgery patients. As a child, under 10 years old, had open heart surgery, and she's had aneurysm, and her brother died of a stroke, and her dad died of a stroke, and I mean, I've got all this great, awful familial history. So I take these products prophylactically, meaning, just say, hey, look, I know that the cards weren't dealt well for me, and so I take them both, and I take them prophylactically. For some people, no, you do not have to do both. Doing both is better, but it is not required if you do not have any concern for cardiovascular disease. And by the way, it is the #1 killer of the world. Even at the peak of COVID, cardiovascular disease was the #1 killer of the world. And guess what? The root cause of cardiovascular disease is endothelial dysfunction.
Correct.
EGX is the protector of the endothelium. It makes sense, and you're right. This is a product that a lot has gone into. But when you look at the baseline effect and you look at it as a core supplement ingredient, or product, like Dr. Houston says, and you look at the effect that it can help you with literally everything that you're taking, by being able to make sure that your personal delivery system, your post office, your UPS, your FedEx inside your body is able to get everything where it's supposed to go and then get the bad stuff out, like doing a return to Amazon. Oh, I don't want that. They come pick it up and take it away,
Right.
and
Right.
so we're very excited about being able to enhance the quality of people's lives, and I've really appreciated this time to spend time with you.
Well, thank you. And, we always had a good, such an energy flow that I knew that we would be able to, we could probably talk for hours, but I did want to bring up something to really address this with something I brought to your attention yesterday. And that is that if you notice, and I'm all about scaling, and of course, being a real estate developer, very important to scale. To make a profit, normally you have to have volume. And I mean, that is the key. To success is the bottom line and the return on investment. And as I said to you yesterday, it just blows my mind that Calroy has only 2 products. And you could have so many more if you wanted to be that commercial enterprise and not this very scientific R&D focused supplement company that's trying to help people to live a better and healthier life. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of our viewers that there are only 2 products this company makes. And I'm not trying to promote you. I've been taking your products, and I have yet to go and do my blood work, but I'm going to be very interested to see how the the lipids and the heart function and all the circulatory functions will be affected by the last 3 months of taking your products. And I'm about to start a new cycle. Thank you very much for sending me some product that I will start again. But yeah, so just to be aware that when you're trying to make a profit in a company and you have 2 products, but you're also very conscious of price and you want your consumers to be able to afford, or your the doctor's patients in your case, to be able to afford to take these products, and then you want to focus on the business side with the ROI and all the research dollars that go into the products. So, the end result is it's very, very difficult with 2 products to scale. So I give you so many kudos for not trying to be everything to everybody and to be able to make a real company viable and honest and the high integrity and all the mission statement that you have on your website and that you verbalized today with 2 products. And what they should do, and what you should do if you're listening today and you want to take advantage of this, that on my website we have an icon that's called Michele Recommends, so you can always refer to that for any offerings that we have from our guests. However, www.calroy.com is the way you can go directly without going through my website to find it. They could also call the company. Is that still offered?
Yes, absolutely. We have a call center, 1-800-609-6409, and maybe you could put that on your website too. But they can find the phone number on the website also. But it's 800-609-6409.
Oh, I just so appreciate that. Thank you so much, Ed. And our viewers will benefit from this. And I think they're going to be writing to me and possibly to you to say thank you very much after their metrics improve so dramatically from these products. What I wanted to ask you before we close is, where are you going? What is the company's path and direction, and what other goals do you have to accomplish?
Well, thank you, Michele. I appreciate that. You have made a point of the fact that we currently only have 2 products. We made a decision from the very beginning that we were going to be more like, I don't know if you've heard the word Skunk Works. A Skunk Works company is a company that highly specializes in certain areas. And matter of fact, we didn't add our second product, Michele, until January of 23.
Wow.
So, excuse me, where are we? Maybe January 24.
24.
I don't know. We just added our second product, and
a year and a half ago.
Yeah. So, but we have three other very unique products that will also carry significant backing in terms of scientific backing in the pipeline,
Okay.
including a very unique product targeted towards gut, a very unique product targeted. Well, I can't actually, because we've got patents pending on some, or not pending, and they're in the provisionary stage. I can't
Right.
really say a lot right now.
That's
But
okay.
we have in the pipeline, in the development pipeline, we have three more, every bit as unique products as we currently have. So that's our vision right now, is those five products, and we expect to have them all within. We expect to have the next three within the next 3 years. So we're hoping to have one a year in the next 3 years. Research doesn't always work according to those sort of time schedules.
Mhm.
So, if a study doesn't go well and we have to tweak something, it might be longer. But we have three more very unique, highly scientific, patentable products in the pipeline.
And are there any supplements that you recommend, not that because they're yours, but because you know how important they are to the combination with your two products, that people should take, like D3
Yeah,
and
ADK with would be a great product. Absolutely. Of course, fish oils and CoQ10. And those
yeah,
would be the ones that come off the top of my head. Because
right,
we're mostly targeted towards vascular, cardiovascular. So
right.
those are the things I'm thinking about. Again, because that's the foundation of everything, and the number, when it goes wrong, it's the number one killer.
And I think people need to know that very much be aware that when you go to an allopathic practitioner, that mostly they look at your lipids. They just look at your cholesterol, your HDL, your LDL, your ratio. And if you have high cholesterol, that anything over 200 is considered high, but that's actually not the what a lot of the naturopathic or integrative medicine doctors will tell you, that you need cholesterol. The cholesterol is the main ingredient coming from your liver and feeding your brain. And so it just has to be the good cholesterol, which is the HDL. But that there are so many other measures that are very important, and particularly what Ed and I have talked about today, which is the arterial health. And if your arteries are blocked, one way to find that out is to do the apolipoprotein test, the A and B test, right? And and
Yes.
then and then the calcium score, which they can do on your and you have to go to a radiology lab, I think, to do that. But these are a little more cutting edge, but there's tests that you should always ask your doctor to add, because the
You know,
lipids.
Michelle, there's another one since you mentioned it's called CIMT. It's carotid intermediate thickness score, and what's really nice about it. It's very reasonably priced, even if you don't have insurance for it. It's a couple $100, and
Yeah,
it's just a probe they put on the outside, and it's very similar to when a pregnant person has an ultrasound done. But that CIMT, there's a company called Vasol Labs, VASOLABS. We don't have any affiliation with them, but
right.
they do a wonderful job. They have a remote, where they'll come to your doctor's office, or I don't know if they
Yeah,
go directly to consumers, but Vasol Labs does a really great job with these CIMT, and you get this really cool report that tells you about your vascular age, regardless of your chronological age. It
yeah,
tells you about your vascular age.
yeah. And I think I mentioned to you about my friend that has the ANS system. It's called Huelight,
Yes.
HUELIGHT. He's going to contact you. Roberto Pateta is the founder, but they do a test that basically it's more of I think it's more biofeedback, but you go into a machine, and it tests your arterial health, and it shows it to you actually on a graph, and it gives you a percentage of how your performance is. You want 100%, which is the perfect arterial health with no plaque. But most people, particularly if they're over 40 or 50, they're going to have some development of plaque. Which, by the way, another very important test is the C-reactive protein and the homocysteine. Which C-reactive protein measures your inflammation, and homocysteine, of course, is one of the another aspect of the lipid test, but it basically, you want to be somewhere around 8 or 9, and in the C-reactive protein, you want to be under 1. So that because oxidative stress is what is, compromising your endothelial system, right? If you have inflammation and oxidative stress, that's why you need to get rid of free radicals. So this all, the beauty of the body is it's so integrated, and there's so many things that if you just do them right, but starting with, diet, exercise, sleep, and all the things we talked about, but then adding these supplements as kind of the superheroes that address a lot of the, let's just face it, our food supply is deficient. Our water supply is tainted. And so if we get older, our health and aging is going to be compromised as well. Our health is compromised by our aging process, which is, affected by all these influences. So these are some tests that you can do, in addition to now adding Ed's products, which I hope all of you will at least look into if it makes sense to you. Well, Ed, I know I go on and on because I just get so excited by, just making a difference, and you've made such a difference. And I just really want to give you again a lot of kudos for taking your financial success and giving back, translating that into the funding of this company to, make it into something that's going to make a difference in the health of so many lives. So congratulations for all you're doing. And thank you for being our guest today. We really appreciate you and Calroy and what you've been accomplishing and where you're going in the future.
Well, thank you, Michele. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
Okay. You take care. All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.